Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
That is the question.
I'm ready.
Were you born ready?
I was bone ready. I don't even, that's a trope. I don't even know what that is anymore. What is that from? I was born ready. What's that? Where was the first time that was said?
Jesus. Oh, just a guess. I wasn't there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm good.
I
Good.
am sure glad. I look forward to this every week. Do you know that? Every week I look forward
good.
to it. Really looking forward to this week because you and I, although we have talked, we have done a really good job, I think, of not talking about this movie this week.
Yeah, because you banned us.
I did.
from
I did.
talking
There's
about it.
we each saw the movie. We're going to be talking about Prometheus. If you've been following along, we did Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. We've done them all, and now Prometheus. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to do our very best. It's going to be a surprise. I have no idea what you're going to say about this. Not a one. And I have posted, nay, 0 in any of my social networks on this film. I am tabula rasa. Blank slate. I am a doorknob. I am a dumb, hayseed doorknob. That's it. The bar is there.
Wow.
Been looking forward to talking about this movie. First of all, I need to say something. You know, the inimitable Megan Strand, who's a dear friend and colleague and former co-host of The Naked Marketers and now co-host of Cause Talk Radio on this very rashpixel.tv network. She brought something to my attention just minutes, nay, seconds before the show.
Wow.
One of the things we talk about every week is please go to iTunes and leave us a comment. And she said, you know what? I've been saying people, they should go leave us a comment. I say that every week. People should go leave us a comment. You know what? It's not a comment. You can't leave a comment on the show, on an episode of the show there. It's not even possible to do. We've been instructing people to do it, and you can't do it. Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because it's a review. A review.
And it's not a review of an episode. It's a review of the show as a whole.
Exactly. It's a review of the show as a whole. That does not change the fact that it is important to leave reviews. Reviews are good things, and they still help other people discover the show, but we've been using the wrong language. I think we just get in the habit of talking about comments, but really we need to ask you, kind listeners, if you listen to the show, please leave us a review of the show as a whole, and a kind rating would be terrific.
Honest reviews are great. 5-star honest reviews are even better.
Yes, that is the truth. And now, if you want to leave a comment on a specific episode, really the best place to do that is on our Facebook page, facebook.com/rashpixel. And you'll see all the shows, but the current week's shows are usually right on top, and you can just jump into the timeline there and leave a comment, a review, or a share, and we sure do appreciate you commenting there as well.
Hear, hear.
Now, can we talk some trailers? Sort of surprised by trailers this week. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
I was just gonna, since you were in all that, I didn't know if you were gonna jump into the rest of it, but maybe
I could do
this week.
No, I could do the rest. I was trying.
I just never know.
Well, okay, let's do you then. Let's do you first. No, you go. No, it's your turn. No, you should do it now.
All right. People can find me at Soda Creek Film or on Facebook at Soda Creek Film or Google Plus. I am there as well, and at Rash Pixel.
Excellent. And we are, I should say, we also have all the episodes are cross-posted at the Rash Pixel Google Plus page. But it doesn't have as clean a URL. It's harder to say Google Plus /9747A17 !! @??1.
They don't make it as easy.
That's dumb. But that is very true. Soda Creek Film, you should go check out Andy because he's a smart guy and posts smart guy things. And there you have it. We're also on Stitcher Smart Radio. It's a smart way to do internet radio. And you, Andy, are still an avid devotee, I assume?
I am. I listen to it every day.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So there you have it. That's enough of our stuff, I think, for today. I'm still playing with SoundCloud. I'm still playing with that. I still have hope that maybe we might migrate a few episodes to SoundCloud on a regular basis. I think that's it. But be on the lookout on our Google Plus or our Facebook page, because we are on the cusp of beginning some late night movies we like, Google Plus Hangouts. We're close to figuring out what our plan is on that, and maybe really, really close. So stay tuned.
I'm very excited about that.
But me too. I'm very, very excited about that. Now let's talk about trailers. I surprised myself with trailers this week. There are a lot of trailers I really liked that I discovered, and I think some of them are out that have been out. They're not new, but they just surprised me.
Did they jump out at you?
They did. They jumped out at me.
Well, the big one, I don't know if it's a big one, but Django Unchained.
That was
Unchained, yeah.
Top of my list. What do you think of it? What do you think of this film?
It's Quentin Tarantino. It's going to be a fun movie, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if it's going to change the face of Westerns, but I am going to have a great time with it nonetheless.
I'm really looking forward to it now that I have read the the thing we posted a couple of weeks ago about the Tarantino universe, film universe.
Right.
It's making me really want to look at this movie much more closely than I had ever really looked at Tarantino's films. And so I'm very excited about that. What have you caught up with 360?
I have not been as good with trailers this week.
Oh, this is going to be dumb then. Okay, well, let me just tell you what I'm really looking forward to. You go watch the trailers. Everybody should go watch these trailers, and we'll meet here next week, and we'll catch up on them. How about that?
That sounds great.
Okay, 360 is looks like it's going to be absolutely terrific. It is the new, Jude Law and Anthony Hopkins and Rachel Weisz and Ben Foster. And it looks like it's a terrific Magnolia Entertainment kind of you know what it is? It's like that, what is the sliding doors? Was that the one with the subway and the doors? Yeah.
That slide.
That slide, yeah. It's like that, but much darker.
Well, and isn't it Fernando Moraes who directed it?
It is, and so I'm very excited about that one. It looks great. The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Mm-hmm.
So this one really surprised me. It looks like a really, it's kind of the same. Not at all to be related in terms of the same tone of the film, but what was the one with the girl next door, the porn star one?
Oh,
remember that movie kind of came out of left field for me. Like I thought it was going to be, sort of an old school thing, and it ended up really having a lot of heart, and I quite enjoyed that movie. And so this one, Perks of Being a Wallflower, it's kind of a high school story, and I found myself really connecting to the trailer. It looks like a very sweet and movie with a lot of heart. So that's worth checking out. Cosmopolis, David Cronenberg's new film. What?
No.
Why do you say it like that?
No, it was Cronenberg. It was that sort of
This one is an interesting one. It's based on the Don DeLillo book of the same name, where we have a 28-year-old billionaire who's on a trip across town to get a haircut in a limousine, and it's all the things that happen to him in the limousine. The tagline, which I thought was interesting, was, quote, "The first film about our new millennium," end quote. So I thought that was a bold promise.
Yeah, interesting.
When I sort of thought, Strange Days was the film about our new millennium. It was just made 20 years too early. So, we'll see kind of what see how this holds up. But it stars everybody's favorite brooding vampire, Robert Pattinson, who, from the series of films I haven't seen.
Trying to get into doing something a little more unique.
Yeah, well...
what was it that Daniel Radcliffe, the Broadway show, he did Equus?
Yeah, he did Equus. He did the nudie thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is Pattinson trying to pull one of those.
Yeah, and it looks like a really interesting film. It was one that I surprised myself being quite caught up in. But you bring up Harry Potter. I should mention, the three of them: Rupert Grint. What was Harry? And Hermione.
Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe, and Hermione was
Hermione. Emma Watson.
Emma Watson. So Emma Watson is in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and she's sporting a delightful American English accent. It's quite charming.
And I heard it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, as an American, as far as you know, I think it's pretty good. And then finally, the last one, the thing that really just hit me upside the head is People Like Us. Oh. And People Like Us. Have you heard about this one?
I think so.
This is Chris.
I feel like I've seen the TV ads for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been out for a while, and I hadn't looked at it at all. Okay, so Chris Pine, otherwise known as the new James T. Kirk, and Elizabeth Banks star in this film, written and directed by Alex Kurtzman. Right, Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci wrote it, and Kurtzman directed it.
Oh, nice.
And it is not action or science fiction it is a straight up family drama and the story, I think, it's an interesting twist on the sort of estranged family thing. He's Chris Pine plays this character who's completely broke, and he comes into some money and inheritance from his deceased dad, and there's a letter with it that says, I need you to take this money, $150,000, and give it to your estranged sister that you've never met, the sister that from this other family, and she is she has a kid, and he has to kind of introduce himself. It's like his journey to introduce himself through the strife that has come between them over the years. It looks like it has that same sort of Kurtzman and Orci kind of bite to the language of the film, but it is the context is totally shattered. It's wonderful. It looks really great. I have high hopes for this to be a strong film. I hope they don't mess it up.
It looks like it'll be a fun one. I hope you're right.
Yeah. That's all I have on the trailers. I can't believe, what do you bring to the table for trailers this week? Nothing.
I'm so sorry. You know what I do think looks fun?
Tell me.
Is Rise of the Guardians.
Rise of the Guardians.
Yeah. Have you seen the trailers for that? It's an animated DreamWorks film that's coming out at the holidays.
This is the one where Santa and the Easter Bunny, and they're all superheroes.
It's like they're these mythic warriors that while they're not doing their holiday at the holiday time of year, they're helping protect children and defend childhood and youth, and then some like black creature comes and tries to destroy all things wonderful, and they have to stop him.
So I don't know. You think this is going to be one that sways people? Do you think?
I think it looks cool.
Do you think Santa, no matter how many
tattoos on Santa Claus, I think it's pretty fun.
That's what I was going to say, though. How many tattoos do you need before Santa Claus becomes cooler than Iron Man on his best day? I don't know if that's possible.
Come on, he's got flying reindeer.
I like the Easter Bunny. The Easter Bunny cracks me up in that movie.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
That's all I have.
I'm right. Sorry. That's good. You're okay.
Yeah.
You did good work.
Thanks.
Okay. So how would you like to begin?
Well, I think since you kept us from chatting about it, I want to hear your thoughts first.
Don't you think we should do like a count, like 1, 2, 3? 1, 2, I love it. I hate it. Yeah, like
and then what? Just yell out our score on 1 to 10.
Yes. Let's do that.
That's hard. I haven't really thought about what the score would be, but okay.
Ready?
I'm going to guess. Okay, ready?
1, 2, 3, 4,
7.
Oh,
this will be a good chat.
Oh dear.
Well, okay, I can totally see why you would give it a 4. In fact, I probably should be closer to that end of the scale, but there's a lot of things about it that I think work, and I still have to applaud them for what they tried. Now, that being said, I do have a feeling that it's not going to age well with me. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming years I am drifting closer to the 4.
Yeah.
But right now, I there's a lot of things that I think are very interesting. and just the number of conversations I've had this last week about the movie and the interesting things I've read online, there's a lot of things going on there that I think are that you don't get normally in a summer film. And so, I still give it a 7. I'm going to stick by my 7.
All right. Well, I think you just made a really key point, and for me, maybe it's just a discussion of half-life of this movie. Like, the half-life for me was much shorter than yours, because when I walked out of that movie, I was stricken.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just to start off, the movie is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
There is, I haven't read anything that counters that. Of all the criticism of the film that I've read, some of which I agree with, some of which I do not. I haven't read anything that says this movie is ugly and it's cheap looking and it's clumsy.
Right.
I thought the first, what'd you say? The first 2.5 minutes is really gorgeous. I mean, it's just transcendent.
The opening in every way, the look, the music, everything, the tone, the effects.
Yes, absolutely, yes, and it makes you. You find yourself before the Prometheus, the title reveal. You find yourself just thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into with this movie? I feel like this may be too big for me on this giant screen. Like it is so. It really is just a feast that you just can't, you don't know how you're going to digest.
Right.
So on that front, I think the movie is stunning. And I think that continues throughout. I think the next moment that I found myself really moved by just what I was trying to take in was the reveal of the Prometheus ship itself. Did that not hit you like a wrecking ball? It starts on this stunning close-up of this reflection of a piece of just sort of metal, and you don't really know what it is. But the way the camera moves around the ship, around that sort of giant sort of carapace that kind of comes down over the main sort of pilot's area, and pulls back to reveal those giant, the 4 engines of this ship. And it was really powerful reveal. I mean, I can't remember. I think that the sort of the next best kind of sci-fi ship reveal has to be the Star Destroyer. In the open of episode 4, that's it's that scale of kind of awesome, or Spaceballs, I guess, for maybe different reasons.
And it's interesting the way it's revealed, because it's almost revealed as if it's planetary object.
Yes.
It has that same sunrise from space sort of look, like the sun rising over a planet, and you see, and then you realize it's not a sun. I'm actually looking at the engine and the light from the fire from the engine.
It was really one of the most unique sort of visual choices that I remember in terms of the way to characterize, and I think it's fair to say this, that the Prometheus ship ends up being as much a character in the film, as the actors, and in some cases certainly gives a better performance. And so I think, I think it was really, I think overall, and that's the general thread that I was left with of the overall film, that it was brilliantly architected. Like, this movie was put together visually in a terrific way.
Yeah.
All right.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And kudos to all the technical crew members involved with that. Dariusz Wolski, the cinematographer,
and Pietro Scalia,
the editor, Arthur Max, production design, all those people, costumes, Janty Yates. It was great. Everything about the look was gorgeous. So let's get that out of the way.
We have to, because that makes this movie like, because the next thing that happens for me in terms of the degradation of the movie over time is the sort of the WTF moments that kind of creep back into your psyche after you allow the other stuff to wash over you. But it's that other stuff that is so critical, because that's what makes it a joy, even as you're calling BS on whatever you happen to be calling BS on. It makes it a joy to see the movie again. And I mean, to see the movie 2-3 times in a very short space of time and not actually tire of it, but as you said, to have even more sort of interesting conversations about the film, I think says a lot about it and what it's trying to do. So
yeah. And I don't. Did you end up seeing it a second time?
Yeah.
Or did you just see it the once?
Yeah.
Just the once. Yeah.
The second.
Yeah.
Twice. And am fully intended to see it again. Just ran out of time.
Yeah, right. Same here. Yeah, I think we both saw it twice 3D and once in IMAX 3D, right?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And let me say, the comment on the 3D was this one, I thought was, I would say this was superior to Avatar.
Really?
Yeah. And I would say that only because, I guess they're different. In this movie, I felt like this is likely the first movie that I remember seeing where the 3D didn't feel like the spectacle.
Yeah.
It felt as integrated with the sort of visual sort of story that I was being told, and not like I'm seeing this movie in 3D because it's supposed to wow me.
Right.
It wowed me, I think, because of what was on the screen, and the 3D was simply an element of that story.
And I love that sort of 3D.
Yeah.
I think it's so powerful when it just makes you feel immersed in the story all the more.
That's it. And Avatar, I felt there were some sequences that you could feel they were trying to just wow me with the fact that it was 3D. Like they were just pushing an envelope and they needed to show off.
Well,
and that's fine.
I think, to their defense, I do think being the first real film that was trying to break that 3D bound, I think that was inevitable.
No, and it was great. It was a spectacle. It's achieved its purpose. But that I think shows the sort of maturity of 3D and why when I choose to see a movie in 3D, and I don't. I mean, you see every movie in 3D, but this is one that is. It makes it easy to say you have to see this movie in the theater. You have to see it on the big screen with 3D.
Definitely.
So, okay.
So all the prettiness aside, let's jump into the story. Or should we try to figure out a way to structure this? Like, should we talk actors and performances first and then get into the story, or should we just jump right into the story?
I think
because if we talk actors first, I'm trying to figure out if we do as much non-spoilery stuff for a while, and then we can jump.
Well,
into all the spoilers later.
Is there kind of a rule set here? Are we? I don't know how we can have a conversation about this movie where there isn't, where we don't.
I don't know. Maybe we should just say,
here's the thing. Starting now,
yeah,
stop. If you haven't seen the movie, stop, because at this point we are likely going to spoil a lot.
Yeah. Everything.
We're gonna spoil it. So starting now, go do your thing and then come back and hit play again. That's good.
Yes. There you go.
Spoiler alert. Okay. So I want to start, at least for me, I feel like I have to start at a really high level.
Okay.
It seems to me that, and I have to characterize this as sort of a grudge match between Spaihts and Lindelof and Ridley Scott, right? And I'm sure that's not how it came out. But because I like what Damon Lindelof does. I like John Spaihts' work. I have, and I love Ridley Scott. I mean, I love these guys, all of them. And so it breaks my heart that I feel like this movie didn't deliver on all cylinders. I feel like there is so much mythos jammed into this movie, and so much, beginning of life on planets story, that absolutely got in the way of what my expectation was, that I was going to see a science fiction horror film. I did not see that film. I saw a thesis on philosophy, the philosophies of life on other planets.
Right.
I didn't see a movie that scared me. I didn't see a movie that thrilled me. I saw a movie that was as likely in, with really minimal edits, as likely to be seen on the Discovery Channel as in on IMAX 3D as part of the universe of Aliens. Do you see what I mean? Like, I was disappointed at that level.
Wow.
I felt like they hurt me in that way. So now I don't at all want to dismiss either one of those things. This is like, we've talked about it before. This is cognitive dissonance. This is like holding these two completely different, equally valid ways to look at this, at the story, but they directly conflict for me. High jump, low ceiling, right?
Yeah.
They don't work together, and as a result, everything else sort of starts to fall apart. It becomes easier to pull apart the little sort of plot holes. It makes it that suddenly aren't so little anymore. It makes it easier to pull apart these weird character relationships that mean nothing. It makes it easier to pull apart that, so I actually had to be reminded that Vickers was Weyland's daughter. I had to be reminded of that relationship because it meant nothing to me when I heard it. Yeah. And so those sorts of human relationships in this movie that were so valuable to the fear, building the fear in Alien and Aliens in particular, were just not present. Like, I didn't care about any of these people. I found them really annoying in some cases. Like, I don't think there's a way to to underscore enough how annoying the biologist and the geologist were. Like, they couldn't have died soon enough for me. So
yeah, and that's definitely one of the big problems. And I keep going through my head, is it the fact that they had too many people, and quite a number of them obviously red shirts, just clearly intended to die, or what? Because the 7 characters that they had in Alien, it was like a great number. You got to know all of them. You cared about all of them. This was 17, and it never quite. There were just way too many to pay attention to. I never cared about the pilot and the navigator and their little, kind of friendly banter back
whatever
and forth
that
with
was
their
about.
bets.
And because you don't care about them, then when they point that ship and burn that ion drive and turn that ship into a bullet, and at the end they all do their thing where they say hands up and they put their hands out and sacrifice themselves as the lambs to the slaughter sort of a thing. This is their spatial crucifixion.
Which we saw in the trailer,
right?
By the way,
which they gave it away in the trailer. We don't care about it.
Right. It is unfortunate, and you brought up the Fifield and Milburn, the biologist, the geologist, and it's that, I think, is a perfect example of things that were done poorly in this film, where they had opportunities to do some really great stuff all through the film, and then you have these moments that are just with glaring stupidity in the script of this geologist who sees this alien body who's been dead for 2,000 years and is just like, oh, screw this, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Leaves, drags the guy he doesn't like along with him. And then they get lost, even though the geologist is the one who sent out the little mapping devices and knows what they do, knows they're in communication with the ship. They're in communication with the ship. The ship's tracking everybody. How can they get lost? It's such a glaring plot device. And then to have Milburn see the little, snake, as something I read called it a penis vagina. As you saw this little thing, he's just like, oh, cute little guy, come here. It's like,
now
seriously?
now you want to touch it? Like, you're scared of the
dead alien that's been there for
fossilized
2,000
alien.
years.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
there
oh,
is
tickle.
There is nothing about the peanut vagina snake that makes you think, oh, I want to touch that like I want to touch a kitten. There's nothing about that thing that looks at all welcoming. It doesn't look welcoming.
No,
it's horrifying.
It looks like something you should not
get
touching.
close to, because you know what? It looks like what it does. Right? That's the problem. Because when you see a gun, you know that if you pick it up, you hold it a certain way, and you know what's going to happen when you pull the trigger. Something's going to come out of the hole at the other end, right? This thing looks like a giant suction cup with teeth on it. And that if it gets close to you, it's going to latch on, and it's probably not going to let go. Why would you get close to that? Had they designed something that looked like a kitten and did something else, that might have have helped me.
This is a really obscure and probably an inappropriate, yet at the same time appropriate comparison.
Do it.
There's this movie made in the 90s called I think it's called Mom and Dad Save the World or something like that.
Sounds like a winner.
It was yeah, that's one way to describe it. It had a moment where it's the same thing. These people they end up in this cave, and they find these like cute little mushroom looking creatures that have these cute little cuddly puppy dog eyes, and they're going and making cute little cooing noises, and that is a logical, cute looking creature for people to go up and touch. Yep. And then of course they lift their little mushroom top and they've got these giant teeth. Okay, that I would be expecting.
Exactly.
And see, it's sad that I'm now comparing this movie to How Mom and Dad Save the World, but there you go.
That's sort of the level.
We need to find that clip in YouTube and put it in the show notes.
But see, that gets to my biggest challenge with this movie, that you see this film that is architected so visually wonderfully and makes it a joy to see, and you think to yourself, this would be better watched on mute because the rest of it is so pedestrian. The story, I mean, the holes in this story are just, it's just too much. It's a bridge too far, and so that's my problem with it. And so my question for you is, you had forwarded me the link to the sort of Mythos review. Who wrote that? It was fantastic.
It was Cavalorn. Is the guy's, avatar on LiveJournal.
Prometheus Unbound. Is the name of it, Cavalorn on LiveJournal, and it is a long review with very detailed comments.
And a lot of thought put into it, and the reasons behind why things may be the way they are. And I really liked it because this is what I liked about this movie. We talked about the characters, and I think we can go on about bad character decisions made throughout the film, like, running in a straight line when a ship is rolling toward you instead of veering off to the side.
That was the thing that really frustrated me a lot, especially because usually when somebody's crushed by a rolling thing, you have two people in a movie and they're crushed by a giant rolling thing. And it sounds totally arbitrary, but there are movies like this, Transformers, the latest Transformers movie, there are characters crushed by a large rolling thing because they can't turn. That's the problem. But the bigger problem with this movie is one character does illustrate a turn.
Right.
Is able to run. The other character cannot. Vickers cannot turn, but Shaw can. That's it's just dumb. Makes you dumb.
It's silly. It's silly.
So, back to Cavalorn.
That being said, we can go on and on about the characters because there's a lot of issues all through with a lot of characters, and it's unfortunate. But the reason that I still find the movie interesting is because it does pose a lot of these interesting questions, albeit unanswered. But it really has created a lot of conversation in my circles about what does all of this mean? Why is the black goo act different when the engineer drinks it at the beginning versus when they encounter it at the end? Why does the engineer want to come and destroy all of humankind now. Coincidentally, 2,000 years ago, around the time of that we crucified Jesus Christ,
and that ends up being sort of one of the most interesting points about this, right? Which is because a lot of what Cavalorn is doing here is speculation based on mythos, based on the Prometheus myth, the religious myth, and it all works. I think it is one really good way to look at it. Yeah. And then he brings up this conversation from an interview with movies.com and that movies.com did with Ridley Scott. And I think we need to read that passage because I think I'm going to read the passage. I'm going to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
With credit to Cavalorn, you people should go read his whole take on this because it's really good.
Yeah, which we'll put in the show notes as well.
All right, movies.com says, you throw religion and spirituality into the equation for Prometheus, though, and it almost acts as a hand grenade. We had heard it was scripted that the engineers were targeting our planet for destruction because we had crucified one of their representatives, and that Jesus Christ might have been an alien. Was that ever considered? And Ridley Scott says, we definitely did, and then we thought it was a little too on the nose. But if you look at it as an quote, our children are misbehaving down there, end quote, scenario, there are moments where it looks like we've gone out of control, running around with armor and skirts, which of course would be the Roman Empire, and they were given a long run, 1,000 years before their disintegration actually started to happen. And you can say, let's send down one of our emissaries to see if he can stop it. Guess what? They crucified him.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, and that throws this whole notion of the space Jesus into it.
Yeah.
Which,
and then we're
not that we
firmly entrenched in the space Jesus.
Yes, not that we want to start, any sort of religious discussions or about, people's opinions of the reality of space Jesus or not. But we're just saying that's what a theory of Ridley Scott's in this movie.
Yeah. Which is interesting because, you look at this as, the thing I got from the first 5 minutes, the first, maybe it's 3 minutes. I don't know. It's very brief, right? Mm-hmm, where we open on this gorgeous landscape and we see this pasty colored giant humanoid, kind of glowing humanoid creature or person. Mm-hmm. Standing on the edge of the ship, and he's running to the top
on the edge of a cliff.
On the edge of a cliff, yeah. And he sees the ship in the distance, and it's a different ship. It's not the kind of U ship. It's a sphere, or not a sphere.
It's not a sphere. It's a flat.
It's a flying saucer. It's a saucer. Yeah. And
it's like an egg.
It's like an egg.
It's a life giver.
And he, this pasty thing, drinks the black goo. And
in a very ritualistic
way, and then decomposes. Mm-hmm. Right, he disintegrates. Right, he doesn't disappear. He breaks down
at a DNA level.
Exactly, and he goes into the stream, he falls into the off this cliff into this waterfall, and he is in the system. And in that way, he very much sort of resembled, for me at least, sort of the more biological context of a seed, right? He was planted on this planet to seed life,
correct.
Right? I mean, that was the feeling I got, and that's one of the reasons I walked. I got out of that after the opening sort of title role, thinking, "Wow, this is not the movie I expected to see." And so that's the big question for me. Did this movie bite off more than it could chew in this universe, in this series? Like, you can't sit there and tell me after we just spent the last month sort of diagnosing the Aliens movies, right?
Yeah.
And celebrating this fantastic creature, these creature films, right? These movies are about the beast. It's about the fear of the beast. And this movie was not. It was not that movie.
No, but, I don't know if I was expecting a horror film. I was expecting sci-fi for sure. But I don't know if I was expecting horror, only because I think they had been saying so often that it was not a prequel to Alien, and so I didn't feel like it had to be a horror film. As long as it was a good sci-fi film, whether it was a drama or an action or a horror, I think I was going to be okay with that. And so the beginning, I felt Ridley Scott was really on the right track of doing something along the lines of like a 2001 Space Odyssey type of story, where we were going to be really looking at a lot of things while also dealing with life in this particular universe that did have these aliens. Now, that being said, by the nature of it having to still somehow tie into this universe, right?
Well, yeah, okay.
Is that something that complicated the mix a little bit and made messed up the recipe?
Not a little bit. A lot. That's the fundamental problem for me, because let's just say I grant you that. Okay, this movie is going to be about the beginning of life and on planets, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be a big philosophical movie. It's going to make people talk about religion. It's going to make people it's going to be a thinker movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And the last hour ends up being the most ham-handed, schlock, shoehorned alien story into a movie that should have been something else.
Well, see, you're saying the alien story only because you're specifically talking about our aliens as if they're ours.
Oh, they're ours.
They're ours, by gum.
You're telling me that at the end of the movie, when the alien comes out, that's not supposed to be our alien?
No, I know, and that was for me. That is the one that felt the most ham-handed, ham-fisted. That to me was just like, oh, why did we have to go there? Why did we need to feel like you had to tie that together? I felt like that was just added on, and it was just inappropriate, and that just kind of messed things up. Because that, I think threw out way too many more questions that should not have even been asked. That bothered me more than any of the other alien stuff in the movie, which I actually found pretty interesting. And I liked that it, up until the ending, it didn't feel like it had to tie together with the alien xenomorph creatures themselves.
And you may be getting to something that you may be sort of getting to the crux of why I have such a problem with it. That I may have been okay walking out of that movie had they not shown me the alien that was so derivative of the alien, and just let it go. Don't show me the evolution, because you know what? Resurrection showed me evolution. Resurrection showed me what happens when we have this sort of when we have the commingling DNA of the alien creature and a human. We see that. We get it. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't need you to ram that down my throat. Let's make this what it is. And it felt like they could. That's what gets back to what I was saying in the very beginning. That's why this felt like a grudge match between Ridley Scott and Lindelof and Spaihts. Like, that's how I have to visualize what ends up in my head being so much more of a disaster, that it was people who could not agree on an overall theme for this film.
Yeah, and I agree. Because that ending is tacked on, which you almost just can't really avoid it because they chose to put it there. It does kind of screw up a lot of what it had going for it, because I think all the other alien stuff leading up to that is really interesting, and interesting in a way where you don't feel like it's like they're trying to shoehorn it into the Alien anthology, despite the fact that in the giant head chamber, you do have that back wall with the mural of the somewhat alien-looking creature there. So I mean, there's
the queen and the alien creature,
right? That definitely ties in a way, but I think if they had left that in there, even though there's way too much stuff unexplained about all of that, but if they had left that in there, hacked that little ending off, I think it would have made a much more interesting story, because you're getting this sense that there's more to this creation that's going on with these engineers than we don't really understand, and that she really is going to be learning a lot more by going off to their planet at the end of the film, and a lot more of interesting things to learn. As it stands right now, because all of a sudden it is shoehorned into the alien life cycle somehow, it does take a little bit of that away, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is a lot of interesting things going for it. And reading this article by Cavalorn, it does show a lot of interesting things that they were thinking about, and how things work, and the nature of the engineers and what they were doing, and the nature of the black goo, and a lot of things that I think are really interesting. Now, do you think did you look at the so-called Spaihts version of the script before Lindelof came on?
Which one did I? No, the one I sent you was Lindelof.
No, the one you sent. Oh yeah, the one you sent me was the one that they co-wrote.
They co-wrote the
Lindelof
one. Yeah, you sent me two versions of it, right? That I have not had a chance to look at.
Yeah, and I haven't either.
Okay.
And honestly, according to the internet, it's unclear if either of them are actual scripts or just, fakes. But there's one called Alien Harvest by John Spaihts,
right,
based on characters by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, that is kind of I didn't really look at it too much, but the gist of it seems to be, instead of them calling engineers, they're growers, and they're growing planets, and there's some humans who are helping them, and it's kind of an odd story between these humans, and then I think at the end one of them finds out that the other one is an android. But then the script that we had both read, there were some interesting changes to the script, and I don't know if they're really for the better or for the worse. But in the script that you had sent us or sent me, Vickers was an android, which we found out at the end,
right?
Which I thought was an interesting little thing.
Well, what I thought was so interesting about that is that they ended up building such a case in the final version of the film, the current, I'm going to say current version of the theatrical release of the film, knowing full well there has got to, please God, be a director's cut sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Where there really is a case to be made that Vickers could be, but they don't, an android. But there is also a quite literally equally good case to be made that she is not.
Yeah.
The fact that she's such a cardboard performance is one of those reasons.
Yeah, I didn't have a huge problem with it, but I did feel like it was very similar to Snow White and the Huntsman. I was just like, wow, it's like the same performance in both films.
Yeah. Well, she was on a roll.
She is. I know. Ever since young adult, she's like, she's the Charlize Grumpy Face Theron is the new direction she's taking,
because she's really quite hot.
Yeah, and funny, and she's a great actress.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, that's
I like how you just tried to redeem me.
trying to help you out.
That was nice. She is also, and I hear she's quite bright. I have never met her, but that I'm sure is why I find her attractive.
I bet that's why. Mm-hmm. But also interesting in the script is Holloway and Shaw were not together, but she was a virgin, and he actually rapes her in the script, and I don't think she got pregnant, though, did she? I don't recall her getting pregnant.
No.
But it, again, that tied into kind of this biblical, like, virgin situation, which I thought was more interestingly explored in the theatrical version.
Again, though, with the ham-handed, you're right. Okay, as long as we're going down this road, let's make it on Christmas. It's kind of an arbitrary Christmas. And we're gonna really hammer home the fact that she's not able to have children, and just one thing after another. I think it's good. All these things sort of came right together, and well, go ahead. I could keep going. I'm gonna stop.
No, I mean, you're right. It all plays a little, obviously. It's I don't know. I still find it fascinating though, and I guess I'll just hold on to that for now.
Well, okay.
Something we haven't talked about that I think is definitely warrants a conversation is Michael Fassbender as David, which I think is by far the most fascinating thing in this film.
Yes, I agree with that. He is he is certainly the most fascinating character in this film, and it was kind of unreal. The way he played this android character, to be both the savior in many respects as he leads her on her final journey off the planet, right? It's his intellect and his direction that saves her, but he's also what ultimately destroyed everything that she was working for. And to do so, to play both sides of that line, I think he did really elegantly.
Yeah. It's a really interesting performance that's generated quite a lot of conversation.
So what's your take on the general buzz about his performance?
I think his performance, I think that his performance and then I think the character's actions are two different things.
Yeah.
His performance, I think, was just unbelievably genius, and I really felt like he very well may have just been an android version of Michael Fassbender that was made for this film, because it was so haunting and perfect and creepy and just fascinating. It was a very interesting performance, and I find myself drawn to thinking about him and his actions and his role in the film probably more than most of the other elements in the film, just because it's just such an interesting character, and I really enjoyed watching him.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think it's one of those interesting things, like when you sort of characterize how he fits, and how would you do that? How would you characterize how he fits in his role in with the legacy that has been sort of under the care of Ian Holm and Lance Henriksen and oh dear God, Winona Ryder.
Well, he's certainly better than Winona Ryder.
But it's not even really better. but because I think Ian Holm is probably the most direct corollary to the service that android character has in the film, right? And I think that's ultimately probably why Ridley Scott has such an affinity for these androids that serve two masters.
Yeah.
Right. Ian Holm's performance of it was just it went from being a kind of a scalpel to a blunt instrument very, very quickly. And I don't think Michael Fassbender, his performance ever actually got to blunt instrument. It was just precise.
Yeah, it was. And it's interesting the way that the android in this film, which happens, 30 some years before Alien, was treated. This alien, for the entire 2 years of the travel, is awake, alert, watching people's dreams like a stalker.
Yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah, it was creepy. Playing basketball, watching Lawrence of Arabia and dyeing his hair, and learning all sorts of ancient languages.
Yeah. Well,
2 years, he was just doing all of this, right?
Well, I thought that was really interesting because, this is one of those things that you do, right? And you know how it works. Right? So think of the functions that you offload to your computer, right? So you're working on a film in Final Cut or Premiere or whatever, and you're done with your cut and you have to render it out. And so you push a button and then you leave. And the computer does work for you.
Yep.
It's processing. And that's it feels like in so many ways the way they treated, David in this film. We have a series of tasks that we need you to process for us while we are asleep, while we go away, we need you to render. And that, in this case, is learn all these languages so that you can translate for us when we get there, because it's way too big of a job for a human to do. You're the tool.
Yeah, it's very interesting in that aspect that is how they perceive him. Yet at the same time, it's very clear that it's still a very awkward relationship. That I guess that this David model is so new to the market that people still have a hard time being in his presence and really understanding his role in things.
Yeah.
Particularly, what's his name? Holloway.
Holloway, to their detriment, ultimately. Just for not understanding, because clearly he had no, his agenda was that which he was given.
Yeah, I think so.
And evolved, because his agenda evolved as circumstances changed. But ultimately, he was at the service of Weyland, and he did what he needed to do.
And one of the interesting things that going back though to my point, but I forgot that I was making. The interesting thing about the androids between this film and Alien is, in this film they keep him like a computer, just running the whole time that they're sleeping, so that he can kind of get all this stuff done. Yet in Alien, the company has now essentially decided to hide the fact that there is one of these androids on board, and just build it into the crew as if it's a regular crew member. And Ash is asleep for those 2 years, or however long that the Nostromo crew is traveling. He's not wandering the ship playing basketball. It's a pretty interesting change between those two films.
Yeah, that is interesting, actually. As if they learned something.
As if they learned people are a little off-put by these androids.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to blend them in. But then again, by the time Bishop is rolling around, everybody kind of knows that he's an android.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's. I hesitate to say that the android, and whether they're exposed or secret, is only there to service the story. It does feel that way a little bit, but
when you put it that way, when you put it that way, it doesn't. I mean, I think there's room to look at that as a cultural shift, and I sort of like the way you put that. I hadn't made that connection.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah,
in the nature of androids. But one of the things about David that I think most people seem to be talking about is, why does he, why does he spike Holloway's punch?
Yeah,
is that a direct order? I mean, how would Weyland have known that David had retrieved this black goo?
Well, I don't necessarily know that that's a problem, right? This is one of those things that computers take actions that we don't understand all the time, right? In the service of if I say, I want the computer to draw a square on my screen, then I give it up that the computer's going to have to figure out how to draw 4 straight lines.
Mm-hmm.
And if I tell David that I need him to go research the black goo and, give me a full report on what it is, I take it on faith that he is going to take the necessary steps,
right,
to give me that complete diagnosis, or that
right, to actually test it out and see what it does.
Yeah,
right.
Maybe I'm rationalizing a bit too far on that one. Maybe.
Well, that's actually that's what I had kind of theorized as well, is that whatever he was doing, even though it wasn't a direct order from Weyland, it was in some way there to a decision that David made in the efforts to achieve what Weyland was eventually looking for, right?
Right.
I do find it interesting, though, that it seemed to me anyway that David was almost like not going to put the black goo into Holloway's drink unless Holloway specifically said that he would do anything to find out the truth. You notice how he had it on the tip of his finger? Yeah,
like there's a test clause. Like
Right. He's like, I'm not going to do this to you unless you say yes.
Yeah.
And then Holloway says yes. And so he's like, okay, then I'll do it to you. And he drops it in the drink.
Which makes it, that again is, another point in favor of this character and the way this character was written. I mean, this was a character, we've talked about this before. When you reach these characters that you find you can tell the writers fell in love with.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that about David. Like, I feel like Spaihts and Lindelof and Ridley Scott were in love with this character. And they gave him some of the most interesting and complex actions and objectives in this film. And I think they really did. You know, compared to Guy Pearce that they just covered in latex and made him sort of arbitrary, and compared to Logan Marshall-Green, who they made just, you know, Holloway, who they just made him really, you know, I mean, here's a guy who's the core of the expedition with Shaw, obviously, and you'd think as an archaeologist, he might be able to get over the fact, as someone accustomed to looking at dead things and rock walls, that maybe his search for space for 20,000-year-old creatures might end up looking at more rocks and walls and things, and instead he becomes this idiot, this drunken idiot, because these things weren't alive.
Especially on their first trip into the first thing they found on the planet.
Exactly.
In the first 6 hours. It's like, that's all the time you're going to give to explore, is just like this less than 6 hour trip. And then all of a sudden you're pissed and screw it. There's nothing here. It's all a waste of time.
And then he became a vessel. He became a tool for the story to get her pregnant, and then we were done, and to light him on fire.
Yeah. You have to, and speaking about him real quick, though, is it not strange that he looks just like Tom Hardy? Like, I was convinced when I saw the trailers that Tom Hardy was in this, and then I was like, who's this Logan Marshall-Green guy?
Yeah. And
I saw that it was him. I'm like, I have no idea. They should have just cast Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy, right.
But, okay, so all of that being aside, what was your thought on the cesarean section scene? Because I was, frankly, like, on the edge of my seat. That, for me, was the, like, big horrifying moment in that film. I mean, I really enjoyed that scene. It was terrifying. I certainly felt bad for any woman who happened to be pregnant while watching that scene, because I can only imagine how awful it must have been, how much more awful it must have been for her. It's a tough scene to watch, and I think that I think it's one of the scenes in the film that will just be talked about for a very long time. Yeah,
I liked it too. You know, I'll tell you, I've read a lot of commentary on that scene that was, you know, really critical of Noomi Rapace's performance, and more the sort of architecture of the scene. They kept saying, well, you know, she hasn't had any painkiller. I don't know what they're talking about. How many times did she inject herself in the course of that 5 minutes? Like, she was totally shot up. Like, I mean, it was the technology was really cool. Like the robo bed. I mean, it was one of those things that just the way the thing moved, it didn't feel sort of arbitrary at all. It felt like I can see technology like this happening. You know, and I really like the idea of being able to program it. And then, you know, I think what sticks with you, apart from all of the sort of pomp and circumstance of the scene and the tech, what sticks with you is the fact that it is the sensation that this woman is giving, and anybody who gets into this capsule, right? This woman is getting in here and giving over her most sensitive, you know, core of her being, right? Her body, and allowing this robot to cut inside of her. And that part, more than the sort of gore of actually having the forceps kind of reach in and pull out the alien squid, that watching that happen, knowing that she's just giving it over to this laser that's cutting her in two, is the part that really sticks with me. I think that is it gets to the nature of sacrifice, and in the favor of life, and sort of the Jurassic Park philosophy that underscores Prometheus, that life finds a way.
Yeah.
And that scene, I think, really celebrates that in a really personally horrifying way. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that's even more of a testament to the importance of this movie is that scene in particular is not scary by the fact that you're running from a monster down a dark hall.
Right.
It's scary because it's out there. It's not today, it's not tomorrow, but it's out there. And that's us with an alien squid.
It's a good thing it wasn't the Goldfinger laser.
Yeah, yes.
That it was just sliced her in half.
Other lasers not welcome in this table. The Death Star laser, also not welcome on this table.
That's right. Although a stormtrooper gun laser, that's not
maybe
so bad.
okay. See, there's another list.
It's not going to do much for an alien.
We need another list. That's
it's
odd.
Going to miss.
Okay. Well,
my.
All right. So you still say it's a. We got to talk about the numbers a little bit because it's not. Obviously, it's not finished yet. The movie cost what I'm reading somewhere in the realm of $120 to $150 million to make.
And thus far, it has made, and this is in 1 week, it's made about 65 million. I'm looking at on day 6, 65,333,000.
Here's the problem. Here is the problem with this. Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted, has outperformed Prometheus.
Yeah. Well, Prometheus is an R-rated film, and it's the number 12, I think, on the list for R-rated openings. So it did well for an R-rated film. It's hard getting people to go see an R-rated. I mean, there's limits your audience.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. You're right.
Yeah, and 3D, I don't think helped that race between Madagascar and Prometheus because both of them came out in 3D, so they were both competing with 3D dollars.
Yep. All right. Well, so I don't know. Does that tell you anything? Does that bode well or ill one way or the other? Is it too early to tell?
It's it's a little too early to tell. I think internationally, Prometheus has already had a little bit more of a run because it opened a few weeks ago internationally, and so I think I actually can't find the international numbers for some reason. I wonder where it is, but. I have a feeling that it's going to end up making its money back, and it's going to do. It'll do fine. It'll do well enough for them to cross our fingers, get a sequel made that will, actually answer some.
Well, now here's an interesting thing. I mean, did you read Ridley Scott said? I think it was in that same interview said that that he sees 3 movies to get us between here. I don't know how he could draw that out after that last scene. With that alien. I mean, it seems like you could get there pretty quickly at the pace that he set in the last half of Prometheus.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't think that, again, I just think that alien just messed things up too much for me.
Totally.
But I think this next film is going to be more about just the second, or the actual alien planet, the engineer planet. And, somebody was... philosophizing online that the reason, aside from Guy Pearce's TED Talk, which to me, even though it's not even in this film,
was better than everything he did in the film.
No, but it seemed to be the only reason that they actually put the age makeup on him in the film, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise there's no reason that Guy Pearce was in the role. I mean, they could have cast many older actors.
And that was it. That my understanding was at some point Guy Pearce ends up playing himself in a prequel to Prometheus.
Well, and my understanding was that somehow he may be coming back in the sequels, but in flashbacks is what I heard. But,
okay.
I don't even know if these things are written, so it's all speculative at this point. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm certainly not. I'm going to see it again. I feel like there's a lot to talk about, and frankly, the visual. Story that this movie tells, I think it's a work of art. I think it's beautiful to look at, and that makes up for an awful lot in terms of this movie. Is it going to be one that I just pop in and watch on a lazy weekend? Doubtful.
Yeah.
I'll pick it up when it comes out, but it's not going to be one of the repeats.
Right.
So.
Random bit of trivia.
Yeah.
Milburn, the Coochie Coochie Coo.
Yeah.
Alien.
Yeah.
You know who he is?
Who is he?
He's Rafe Spall. He's the son of Timothy Spall, a great British actor who was in Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. A little tie into some of our last chats. He was one of the Andes in Hot Fuzz.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that makes me like him a little bit more, even though I still think that's just a ridiculous character.
Not a great character. I think I think you made a good point. I think there were too many. I think the cast was too big.
Yeah,
for this little, and that. All right, I just got to get it out. I just got to get this out because really, we're going to put all these people on the flagship exploratory spacecraft and send them across the universe for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to let them meet before they climb into the pods. They're not going to be allowed to shake hands, say, hey, see you in 2 years.
Right.
None of that. The first time they meet is after they've been sleeping next to one another. Like, really? We're going to, like, that wasn't something that somebody caught?
They don't even, it's like what? They're not even going to meet while they walk in to lay down in the pods?
Like the boss, Vickers, who makes a huge case about how important it was for her to have hired certain people by just even saying that line to all of you that I hired personally, welcome to all the others of you. What? She didn't even know everybody on the ship? She didn't know. She's the boss.
Right.
How did I just... Like those, I found myself just getting mad. And I think that's part of the reason people get so frustrated with this movie is because it insults. It is an insulting story element. It's because we feel like these guys who we trust to tell us a great story, to give us to give our money to them in exchange for a good story, because they have a proven track record of delivering solid stories. And when they don't, it's an insult because we know they're better than that. I think that's actually a compliment. Has this soiled you on the experience for you for seeing anybody else's or any of the movies that these guys come out with in the future? Lindelof?
It hasn't. I mean, I still feel like, I have a hard time unless somebody really just makes bad things time after time after time. I usually don't attribute it to that particular person, and I'm sure I'll see stuff that any of these guys do again. The nature of making a movie, it's so hard to get a movie made that I find it hard to blame any one person if something just doesn't turn out quite right.
Which is, I think is exactly the point I was trying to make. I think that's really true. I think all of these guys are really talented, and that's what is so frustrating about this movie. That it's just, we know that they're better than some of the choices that were made in this film, and yet it was a beautiful experience. It's still a 4.
It's still better than most films that I'll probably see this summer.
yeah. Well, that says a lot.
It does. It does. Okay, so last little note.
Yeah.
Did you on that Cavalorn article? Did you read down to the bottom and follow any of those links that he had on the bottom
to the videos?
No, but just above the videos, there's a link. It said Cleo Linda Jones has done an M15M Prometheus post.
And I haven't read it. I have it in I saved it. I didn't read them all in Instapaper, and so I'm looking at it right now, but I haven't read it.
It is. You will love it. This is, I think.
I love this. After 5 minutes of Icelandic landscape porn.
Just let me read this bit here, which I just think is, all of it's great, and I'm just randomly picking a random thing out of this to just mention, but it just makes me laugh. They're in the, what does she call it? The Temple of the Giant Stone Head, which is filled with hundreds of sealed urns watched by a giant, enigmatic, strangely human stone head, hence the name. So that's this scene, and this is after they've contaminated the area, and Shaw says, hey guys, the mural is moving. The mural has noticed we're here. Maybe we should go. And then Janek on the radio, hey guys, there's a suit frying electromagnetic plot storm coming. I second the leaving. Yeah, she basically rewrites a whole movie in about 15 minutes and in a very funny way. And so I definitely recommend you everybody go read this because it's really, really funny.
That is great.
Yep.
All right.
So check it out, enjoy, and I guess that's it for this week, huh?
That's it. This is a long time coming.
It was, and I am a little sad that I wasn't as enthralled by it as I wanted to be, but you know,
that was fun. I'm glad we did that. What are we doing next week? Are we going to talk about it?
Yes. What are we doing next week?
You can't act. Really?
Are we doing?
You are the keeper of the schedule. This is your role.
Well,
you keep me in line and tell me what to do. You cannot hand that back.
Well, I asked you these questions and you never responded. So then I'm just going to say it then.
That is a presumed yes.
Oh, okay. I know that now. So next week and the week after, we're going to be doing 2 Jason Reitman films.
Which ones?
We're going to do Thank You for Smoking, and we're going to do Up in the Air. We're going to do the ones that he didn't do with, what's her name? What's her name? I don't like at all.
Because what was the other movie that what was it?
She did Juno and
Ellen Page.
Not Ellen Page.
I like
Ellen
her.
Page. It's the writer.
The writer. Yeah. Diablo Cody.
I don't like Diablo.
Okay.
So we're gonna skip the 2 Diablo Cody, Jason Reitman projects, and instead we're gonna do Thank You for Smoking and Up in the Air. Those will be our next 2.
Very much looking forward to that. I think so. Next week. Well, we've got logistics. I'll talk to you about logistics after.
Okay.
Good talk. Hey, thanks, Andy. This was fun.
Indeed.
Here at The Next Reel, we've been passionately discussing movies week after week since 2011. That's a lot of movies and a lot of conversation.
Sure is, Pete. And to be honest, it's a lot of work too. But it's work that we love. If you have been enjoying our show, we'd like to remind you that there are ways to support us even if you're not able to become a member just yet. You might have heard us talk about our new watch page where we've listed every movie that we've talked about paired with Amazon or Apple links to rent or buy the movie.
Now we'd like to introduce you to our originals page. Let's take a trip down memory lane, Andy. Do you remember what the first film we discussed on The Next Reel was that was an adaptation?
Well, let's see. It wasn't obviously our Indiana Jones series because those were all original. Then we did Charlie Kaufman. Oh, of course. It was adaptation from Susan Orlean's Orchid Thief.
Exactly. We have covered quite a few adaptations over the years, and now we're providing a way for our listeners to delve into the original source material.
That's right. Just head over to thenextreel.com/originals, and you can see the list of all the adaptations that we have discussed.
From our David Fincher series, featuring The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Social Network, Zodiac, Benjamin Button, and Fight Club.
To our Paranoia trilogy with The Parallax View and All the President's Men, we have covered a variety of adaptations.
Those were some great discussions, especially Fight Club. And let's not forget our baseball series with The Natural and Field of Dreams, adapted from Shoeless Joe.
And Up in the Air and Thank You for Smoking. So many memorable conversations.
Absolutely. And you know what's exciting? Each purchase you make through our links doesn't cost you any extra, but a percentage goes to support The Next Reel in our family of shows.
You can support us while diving deeper into these fantastic stories, whether it's the paper, audiobook, or Kindle version.
We've also included plays and movies. If they were the source, we've put it on there.
So what are you waiting for? Head to thenextreel.com/originals, support The Next Reel, and get your next great read today.
I'm off to reread Fight Club. Now, where did I put my Kindle?